I recently got a comment on my Captain America Agent of Hydra video that really made me think. And this was something that I have heard over the years on message boards like Wizard World, The Fwoosh, and Superhero Hype. And I've also heard it in Facebook groups that I'm in regarding comic books and fantasy. And the statement that the comments are made was that over the last 30 or 40 years, a lot of people in the comic book industry who are creative are in business positions. And I believe that having those creative people in those business positions really prevents the industry from growing. As I read in Jim Shooter's blog a couple of years ago, when he came on the scene at Marvel, he started to see a lot of the same issues going on at Marvel. A lot of the subscriptions were not being fulfilled, a lot of the business was not being taken care of. And when he started coming into the editorial positions, he started taking care of that business, making sure that those subscriptions were fulfilled, making sure that books were going out on time, and making sure that the product was the best quality it could be, because he understood that publishing was a business, and that if the business isn't working, then your artists and creative people aren't going to have the money to get to be able to continue publishing and to continue paying them. So I look at the comic book industry, and that's a big problem. We have a lot of creative people, and they really don't understand that publishing comics is a business and that you are creating commercial product. What a lot of creators like to do when they create is they thinking that they're creating something for them, and that's not the case at all. Whenever you create something like a publication, such as a comic book, a novel, or any sort of product like that, you are creating a commercial product, and your goal is to create publications that sell to the largest audience possible. And when you have a lot of creative people in business positions and they don't understand what how the business runs and that the business runs on money, they'll sit there and they'll try to launch books about obscure characters, or they'll try to create stories that they feel or appeal to them, not understanding that your goal is to try to sell as many copies of a certain comic book as possible and try to create characters that appeal to the largest audience possible. And again, that goes back to your editors having that business background, because again, publishing is a business, and a lot of people in the comic book industry do not treat comics like a business. They don't have people with a business background to show them why putting certain story elements in a story will alienate readers. They don't have someone there to give them the guidance to understand that writing a certain story may offend people, or making a statement to an audience may offend people. So you don't want to do that and cut off your customer base. You don't want to do create products that do not appeal to a tiny audience. You don't want to create those type of products. But these days you have a lot of creative people in these positions, and they have no idea what to do in them, because there are two parts of the publishing industry, and one part is the creative, which is the writing and the art, but then there's the other aspect of the publishing industry, which is the business aspect, and that is the editorial, which is managing the catalog of characters, managing the licensing of the characters, and managing the sales venues and distribution of these comics and where they go, and also, making marketing the characters to readers and marketing the comics to readers. And this is where a lot of people start to fall apart, because they don't understand what it takes to manage that business aspect of a publishing house. Managing is the toughest part, because you can write a great story, but if you don't have a plan on how to target an audience for that story, or a business model on how to sell that product to readers, then no one's going to see it. Because what you're doing when you don't have a business model is you're just throwing up a product out there, and just looking for any random person to go and get it. But when you have a plan, you can try to reach the audience that you intended the product to go to. And you can also set up a plan for launching books that so that there's an audience build, there's anticipation for it, there's the audience is talking and chattering and giving you enthusiasm, and you're getting feedback that's positive, and you're building a buzz. That's all part of having a seasoned business person working at your publishing house. They'll sit there and say, this is going to be a front list title. Then we need to start doing some teasers or some trailers or some back ads so that there's a significant buzz for the book, so that when we launch that number one issue, the readers are excited about it and ready to go out and start buying it. And that we don't have that type of person in today's comic book industry. We don't have these type of business people sitting there. Instead, we have a lot of creators, and they approach things not from a professional business standpoint. They approach it from an emotional standpoint, from it being about their art, and they're sitting there trying to launch these books, and they're not approaching it in the most effective way. Instead, they're trying to use things like shock marketing and stunts to get people's attention, when that's not how you build strong buzz for a publication. What's going to build strong buzz for a publication, again, is a long-term plan. Now, over the last year for the SJS Direct 2016 catalog, I spent a good whole of starting from August working on this year's titles, and I began working on the marketing strategy for them. I began doing things like putting together the Kickstarters to try to raise funds, and I began laying out which audience I wanted to go to, where I wanted to go, and laying out that type of plan. And that takes months of planning. That's before the books even started launching this April. I had to do all of that before a single book launched. But when I look at a lot of these comic companies, they're just doing things rather haphazardly without that type of long-term planning for what type of audience you want to go to, what type of readership you want to go to, where do you want to target the books, what venues do you want to target them for, what platforms do you want to use, such as an ebook platform or a paperback platform. And that requires, again, more strategizing. And when I do my marketing strategies, that's what I do. I sit there and I go, which platform do I want to start my targeting with? Do I want to start with an Amazon Kindle, or do I want to start with Smashwords, or do I want to just launch straight paperback? And I understand that paperback is the slowest market, so I may put that out there, but my main focus is the e-readers, which is your Smashwords platform or your Kindle platform or your Nook platform. And I usually start launching through there and then going backwards to the paperbacks, and that's how I create an audience for a book. But I don't see that type of strategizing. Instead, I just see people throwing crap at a wall, throwing up an image, and then hoping people get excited. And you can't do that. You have to have a plan for how you want to market the book, which audience do you want to market a book for, and what group of readers do you want to be your core audience. And that's another thing that I don't see a lot of people in the comic book business doing. I don't see them trying to say, are we trying to go for tweens? Are we trying to go for teens? Are we trying to go for young adults? They're just saying, we're just going to publish comics, and the comics will sell. And that's not how you sell any sort of publication. You have to have a core audience that you're going for. You have to have other audiences on the external that you're going for. And when you write the story, when I write stories, I think about the core audiences like I want to go for. When I'm doing African American fantasy, say like Your Man Who Rules the World, I'm going primarily for a male audience, but I also put story elements in there that will appeal to females. And I also put things, and I also make it general ages, so that if a tween or a teen wants to pick it up, they also can enjoy the story. And when you do something like a romance novel, your primary audience is going to be core women. And that was one of the things I did with the Spinsterellas. Like, I was focusing on the core audience of women, and another targeted audience, which is women in the goth subculture. And I also wanted to target African American women who are in the goth subculture. So I looked for audiences to target the product for, so that there's a base of readers there who will want to take a look at the book, want to try the book out, or even want to go out and buy the paperback, because if they see me putting it on different platforms, there may be one group that wants e-readers and another group that may want paperback, but I have them both available for both of them, and I have a platform and a campaign ready to target them. And you don't see that with comics these days. Instead, it's just we launch a bunch of books with no marketing, no strategy, no plan for an audience, and no business approach. And I look at the publishing approach, and it's really impeding. It's impeded the growth of the comic book industry for many years. That we haven't had anybody really focus on it from a business approach. We have a lot of people. Yes, they're very creative. Like these days, we have Jeff Johns, who's an executive now, but he's not a business person who has a business background. He's a comic book writer, and his background is primarily writing, and that's very nice. But if you don't understand how to make business models work and business and do things in a professional manner, you're gonna prevent yourself. You're gonna be sabotaging yourself, and that's what I see happening a lot in the comic book industry. You have a lot of people sabotaging themselves because they don't understand, that comic book characters aren't something that you own. They are commercial property. They are commercial characters, and you have to create content that appeals to the largest audience possible. And you can't do things like stunts and shock marketing to get readers, because it's not going to get readers. That may get people's attention for about a second, but at the end of the day, you wind up losing more readers long term. What you want to do is create stories that give readers that sense of satisfaction, and have them anticipating the next book. And that's what's going to keep your reading audience with you long term. And I don't see a lot of people trying to build towards that long term audience, because the long term audience is where you're going to make the real money. This is what a lot of people in the comic publishing business don't understand, that people in the trade publishing business understand, is that publishing is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And a lot of people in the comic book industry, because they don't understand the business of publishing, try to sprint towards six-figure sales, not understanding that in the publishing game, it's about the marathon. And what's going to help you win the race of a marathon is you having the patience and endurance to hold out when a title is starting off with a little bit of a slow sale, and doing things on the business side, like putting ads in other top-selling books to help push it, going out to different area cons and stuff, and having your creative team talk to the readers and do things like that, or handing out free samples of this book so that people can see how great it is, so that you can do something like build that word of mouth. But a lot of comic book publishers these days, what they do is they'll launch a book, they won't have any marketing plan, and then when the book starts to flounder, they want to cancel it after 7 or 8 issues, and then you really needed, if you wouldn't have had to have canceled it if you had a long-term plan. And the best way to prevent these books from being canceled is to have that long-term plan, because if you understand how to manage your 3 lists, which are your front list, your back list, and your mid list, you'll understand how to set that book up so that it will sell a significant amount of copies, and it will move units. Because if you have a book that is more of a mid-list book, and you're not having a plan to really sell it, then it's going to die. And if you have a front list book that has no marketing plan, then you're not going to be able to build the word of mouth that is necessary to get readers to buy it. And the comic book industry, as I see it, really needs those type of business professionals in it, and they need somebody to help manage their catalogs so that they'll be able to sell more comics. But I don't see those people there. Instead, they get creative people, comic book artists and comic book writers who are popular, and they put them in those positions. But they don't have the business skills, they don't have the management skills, they don't have the marketing skills to help sell publications. They try to sell it based on their name, but that's not going to help you build word of mouth with readers who don't know who a Jeff Johns is or Chris Claremont is. That might sell with comic book fans, but that doesn't sell with casuals long term. And that's why you really need a business professional to show you how to reach those casual readers and those people who are outside the comic book industry, and show them how great comics are. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.